had moments where, you know, someone just storms out of the studio and gets chased by the police. We call stuff like that.
No, we're not chased by the police.
You were chased by the police.
It was not chased by the police, no, but anyway.
Who are we? That's a very good question.
In the philosophical sense, it's a long chat, but we are curious musicians, for sure. That's something that brought us together. And from that, and being so curious that no one else was kind of fitting the bill on the level of curiosity, we met up as a duet and we make new music as far as we can.
Under the pseudonym Bitch and Monk, which isn't Bitch and Monk anymore. It was at the very beginning. And then it became Bitch and Monk and Bitch and Monk and Bitch and Monk. Anything that would inspire us ordinarily often really gets channeled into this music. So a lot of it is, I'd say, has been quite political. And now we've moved into thinking that you can represent your politics in a less explicit way. But our previous album was kind of inspired a lot by being on the edge of London and looking out over this city that was gradually changing and representing things, and seemed to be a motor for a lot of the cruelty and strange things going on in the world. And now I think we're probably moving into something a bit more connecting to the natural world a bit more, animals and...
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was the album that we recorded, the second album is called We Are Peering Over. So, and it was supposed to be like on the edge of, are we gonna make it as a human race or maybe not? We are definitely on the edge. It seemed that way. And that was the, like before all this kind of Trump and all that kind of stuff that's happening now. So it had an element, we were talking about in one of the tunes about a prophetess from England. And that's one of the songs. It's all about things that might happen, but maybe and everything changes. The history changes as you define it in the present. Maybe we're peering over into our own edge of the next thing that we're going to do, which is definitely be more mobile, more gypsy-like in our lifestyle, but also we're right at the edge of who we are musically as well now. So like the music that we're composing now, we're not yet playing it, but it's very different from what's that. So we're looking at the edge of where we're able to do. I think that's always been an element of what we do, being at the edge of what we can do. So we might compose things that takes 6 months to be able to perform, and maybe a year later we can, finally that sounds what we envisaged it to be. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, we've sort of making the music into our own school system. So that's one of the drives as well. And I think also, in terms of just purely musical or artistic influences, both of us always had a taste for things that can be in multiple worlds at once. So not just kind of a harmony and a melody that sits perfectly on top of a rhythm, but things that they're not dissonant, but they just connect in a more tenuous way. Melodies that are more bitonal maybe. And so but also, because of that, I guess we relate to, it depends, it goes across genres, but from classical music probably people like Stravinsky or Berio, and then in jazz people more like some of the later Miles, Coltrane, Monk.
But we're passionate about people who, when they play, there's a depth to them, which is a little bit being on the edge of who they are at different times. So that's what is really inspiring, seeing that people with that emotion of not, like discovering things. But also the way in which we compose is a bit like that. We don't quite know if it's working, and then we let it be, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. And also, we allow things to come in, like, for example, we were listening to a lot of kind of civil rights activists from the United States, and that seeped in through the music without us trying, and we don't have explicit words for it, it's just more intentions. But there was one time when we tried to put a real big, heavy kind of philosophical kind of idea that was very detailed, and it was about, I was like the Colombian coming into the UK and Heidi was a tourist and stuff, and we did and stuff. We recorded the conversation and tried to do some music, and it was awful. So we stopped that. We stopped trying to be so self-conscious, like trying to. And slowly we found a bit of a university in sounds, in scales, in ways that we communicate, in how we collaborate. It's kind of little language, kind of words of a language, and that, it's both through the passion and things that we're inspired by and things that we discover from each other.
You can't get away when you're making moolah. You can't hurrying all around. And you're running the rain, you want to run in the rain. Oh, don't do that. You can't get away when you're making moolah.
We've traditionally fought a lot over the music because we made a decision that it wouldn't be, you know, Heidi's songs with flute accompaniment or Mauricio's overture with Heidi's guitar. We wanted it to be a full DNA of the two of us. And so I think that intention means you're constantly breaking with your own barriers. Sometimes your ego comes into it, sometimes gender imbalance, sometimes all the politics of the world seem to play out in the dynamic of how we write.
Yeah, it seems
can
like
become quite fiery. We've had moments where, you know, someone just storms out of the studio and gets chased by the police.
We call it
stuff like that.
No, we're not chased by the police.
You were chased by the police.
It was not chased by the police. No, but anyway, it wasn't. It was the police was there, and we just had a disagreement on that. But it's good.
The police are there.
Anyway, the way it seems to work is that we seem to be leading things that might happen later on, or that other people are living in a larger bit of society, and it is a man and a woman collaborating. And how do you, or two egos? It could be any really, but it happens to be that way. That we're both quite strong. We both like leading. And there was a time that was there like that, and now we found a really nice language in a way that is I love doing music in this context of how we do it so much because of being able to work successfully with those things. It's like, wow, we got through all that stuff, which was just normal stuff that you would, because if you're this idea of the compose, I compose, so that's nice, and it's maybe good if you want, but maybe we never really compose. Maybe everything comes in different directions, and the idea of owning a song is a bit of a weird thing. And maybe exploring it, composing together really fully is in a way giving away the idea that is
your solo creation.
You know, it's my solo creation. It's nice because then it could be a new. Well, lots of people have collaborated like this, but it's nice to create some kind of, I don't know, stereotypes or some kind of possible ways of doing things that are successful, and it is properly collaborating, and there's no one kind of going being the underdog or being the person kind of, I'll just do it because it's, you know, she's the
I think it happens
one,
a lot in any dual writing partnership, like songwriting partnerships, that if you remove either one from the content, you know, when you hear like Paul McCartney solo, and you think, no, I think it's in the context with John Lennon. And sometimes, not saying that either of us solo would be really lame, but what Bitch and Monk is definitely.
No, actually, it's the opposite.
The two of us fully, you know. Like,
it's the opposite. We're better about. No, we're not. No, what it is that we can be. I think that's the only time it can work is when you know you can do anything on your own. That's fine, but you want to really truly collaborate, and then that expands to other stuff, like, for example, so our project now is wanting to expand into us writing music together but having larger ensembles as well. We try to be a large ensemble. Some weird reason, all the loops and everything, it is a bit like trying to orchestrate, so it's given us a lot of practice.
It's trying to orchestrate and trying to make up the fact that it's much less effort to use a loop station than employ another band member. It's also becoming.
I never thought of it like that. Never. It's harder.
It's
harder.
become like that. I didn't think.
No.
Employ a bassist or play bass, but I think it does mean you deal with one less intrusion into the purity of the music.
It is a lot of like we talk like on top of each other. Quite enjoy it sometimes. We go through phases of loving it and hating it. But it is a bit like being able to having these two minds at the same time where your feet are doing something whilst you are putting your emotion into something. That's something that's been a challenge for both of us, I suppose. But Heidi's playing the guitar sometimes and singing and improvising on top of and being able to try to be passionate and emotional about what the moment is, as well as keeping a certain kind of order, I suppose, in what we do. It's not always order, but yeah, a lot of the songs are heavily arranged, but they also go very free. So, yeah, that balance is always on the edge, I think, which is nice, it's exciting. Don't want to play it, well, we haven't played it safe, so.
Well, we came up with a term only recently. We went through various different attempts to pull together pre-existing ideas, like, actually, to be honest, usually accepting terms that have been applied to us, like operatic post-punk or things like that, but they never really felt particularly genuine, because we always thought, well, at one point it might be operatic post-punk, but then at another point it's quite pure chorale-like sounds, and at another point it's sort of punk jazz or something. So it felt insincere to be using terms like that. So anyway, we came up with this idea of fluid
it just
form.
felt really boring, just having to come up with this, okay, is this thing? And I always find that really hard, since we've never really started the music with that idea anyway. And
it does feel a little bit like doing just marketing rather than actually expressing the essence of what you're doing. So fluid form felt like when we said it, we thought, oh yeah, that really is a bit like how our name formed. You know, you kind of say something flippantly, and then the more you muse on it, you think, oh yeah, that really does express it. Although my friend thought it sounded like a panty liner, but we'll leave that. We'll leave the menstruation aside. I think it sounds more like the idea. It's this idea that you could fluidly move between forms rather than necessarily being completely free, totally free improvised. You might move from one form to another, and in between there might be total freedom, and allowing music to travel more like a river that's going downstream.
There's a big element of us trying to find other artists that were doing similar things to us, just to see where they played, so that we could go and play there. Because we ended up being either not avant-garde enough, or not jazz enough, or too little of something but too much of another. In some cases that's a good thing, but we started looking for bands that did similar things, and we found a few that were like that were really beginning to explore the idea of music without those boundaries. But yeah, jumping from things is just natural to us, and other bands were like that.
It's not so much jumping, it's more, in a way, we've reached the point where people can, as listeners, you can quite easily just skip from track to track. And obviously you can wish for a time when people were more stuck with when the LP stopped playing. But that's not the reality of where we are now. And actually, maybe the mind does want to travel really quickly through worlds, and actually, maybe you don't need to repeat the chorus ad infinitum. Maybe it needs to happen once, and then you want it to happen again, but you're going to have to play the song again if you want to hear it again. And that's part of I think, what drew us to do song form that wasn't traditional. It might be something that seems like it would repeat, and it never actually does. And so that, I think, drew us to realising that we were more fluid than stuck in form.
But now it's become a bit of a thing where I have a few people kind of coming together to the intention of doing a small festivals, they are similarly minded, and the idea of creating also, because creating maybe our own, really enabling people. If you say fluid from, people don't know what they're gonna get, and we have an audience in the world that decides what they like, rather than is decided for them by people who write what it should be, which is a lot of the world now works that way.
Yeah, I think it could be quite liberating, because I think in some respects certain music genres almost have even a uniform attached to them. There's kind of the goth music, and there's the kind of jazz casual, and there's the, you know, like I think it might allow people to be liberated from the idea that just because you do like a few bands from one genre and a few artists from another, that you would ever really have to commit fully to any.
But just to exercise people's taste, just I like these and I don't like it, I don't have to read anything. The more, I think, from my point of view is that the more we all do this in life, we then make better decisions and can, by and large, I think have a
revolution.
A bit of a revolution, a society that can decide for themselves what they actually need for their own little path, and so we welcome all musicians to the fluid form world. It's a freedom of choosing things and not being afraid of, am I going to be reviewed? Am I going to be maybe joining forces to say, okay, we can organize ourselves? Because that's another thing. As musicians, we have so many talents, so many areas. We can organize ourselves and maybe create something where people can truly stop fearing, am I going to be able to play in this festival? Am I going to be able to record, get funding? Any of those things that are, reality. But I think that there's a possibility of doing it that way, getting together and defining what you like and letting people decide.
A lot of mockery over my ears.
Actually, look over here. If you look at Heidi's ears,
he has a theory that I had them pinned.
I think when she was born, something happened and they didn't tell her. And there's all these kind of folds in Heidi's ears, which are, I think, either alien or operated.
Yeah,
but they denied. Her family denies it. So I still don't believe.
But that's just physically.
Physically.
Spiritually, my ears. It's just a tunnel, really, isn't it? I mean, where does the ear end and where's the soul? I think it's a bit like the voice, that the voice has very little to do with the throat. It just goes through it, and everyone thinks, oh, it's all in the throat, and it's not. So maybe the ear is just the transmitter. So I'd say, lovely though you are, ears, you're just a conduit.
But funnily enough, when I was a little boy, I had my ears were used to stick out a lot more.
Oh, so you've just been accusing me of pinning, and actually you're the one that's had them pinned.
No, I didn't, but they used to stick out, and through the force of sleeping on them, they become flatter. But they used to call me in school in Spanish, call me parabolica, which is a parabolic antenna, like when you go. And that was my nickname for a while. It's definitely an ear that seeks passion in music. So it's like, wow, and it could be anything. A connection, it's weird.
Yeah, I've always had a feeling that things that I've loved, that I've just heard, I'll look up the biography of this person, I'll realise, oh my God, I have so much in common with them.
Which is often that they never...
Someone usually that didn't allow themselves to be schooled or conform. And that seems to be, I'd say that's probably the only linking force in my personal music taste, is little rebels.
Got the